prevailing economic environment as well as forces require us to introspect deeply and seek ways and means to strive for independence beyond what we are used to, as well as what we thought was possible. This is an opportunity that we must jump at and strive for relevance and survival in a hostile and perilous environment. For these reasons, the budget therefore prioritizes strategies to equip ourselves with the skills and tools needed to participate meaningfully in a rapidly changing global environment. However, before we move on, it is absolutely necessary and essential that we review our position and status in the context of the global and regional sphere. In doing so, I am pleased, Honorable Speaker, to report that our fiscal position in 2024-25 has stabilized reasonably to secure us space for policy maneuvers to reinforce our foundations. The 2025-26 budget is anchored on fiscal prudence, economic growth, and social protection. We continue to allocate more resources to investment spending, underscoring our government's commitment to infrastructure and economic transformation, while remaining mindful of the need to prudently manage recurrent expenditure, particularly the wage bill. In acknowledgement of both opportunities and risks, we recognize that while increased water royalties from the Lesotho Highlands Development Authority have boosted our revenues, we must prepare for potential fluctuations in SACU receipts, which could impact our fiscus and our outlook negatively. This underscores the urgency of diversifying revenue sources and strengthening domestic revenue mobilization initiatives. Honorable Speaker, this is a defining moment in our history. The opportunity and responsibility to reshape the economic trajectory of our nation has never been more urgent. For that reason, this budget is not just a statement, but a statement of intent from government as it sets a clear path for economic diversification, as it prioritizes social equity and recognizes the importance on environmental stewardship and fiscal prudence. It is a blueprint for a future where every Mosotho has the opportunity to thrive, where innovation and enterprise are not just encouraged, but actively supported. With courage, Honorable Speaker, we shall face the challenges that are present before us head-on. We will build a stronger, more resilient, and inclusive economy that secures the future of our people. And as I proceed with my statement, I seek the support of this House in ensuring its effective implementation for the benefit of all Basotho, because our shared goals remain very clear: to build a more prosperous, equitable, as well as competitive Lesotho. Mr. Speaker, I would like to talk about the outlook for the years 2025 to 2026. And as I do so, I turn now to the global context. According to the International Monetary Fund projections on global growth will be maintained at 3.3% during 2025. This growth falls below the historical average of 3.7% observed from 2000 to 2019 globally. It also indicates that the global economy has not fully recovered from the maladies that bedeviled it in the recent past. In the United States, we observe robust economic performance with growth projected at 2.7% in 2025, marking a 0.5 percentage point increase from previous forecasts. This increase is underpinned by favorable wealth effects, accommodative monetary conditions, and a resilient labor market. However, as we turn to emerging markets, China's growth forecast has been marginally revised upwards to 4.6% for 2025, supported by robust fiscal measures announced in November last year. India continues to demonstrate remarkable resilience, with projected growth holding steady at 6.5% for both 2025 and 2026. Coming closer to home, to sub-Saharan Africa, the region achieved growth of 3.8% in 2024, demonstrating its resilience in the face of global headwinds and increasing geopolitical tensions. In the neighboring South Africa, however, the economy faced significant challenges, with growth limited to 0.8%, reflecting persistent structural constraints and infrastructure challenges, particularly in the energy sector. And looking further in 2025 through 2026, growth in South Africa is anticipated to improve notably to 1.5% and 1.6%, suggesting that some of the structural impediments may begin to ease. Global trade outlook has been modest towards revisions for both 2025 and 26, primarily due to elevated trade policy uncertainty. However, these effects are expected to be transitory in nature. Mr. Speaker, while these projections paint a picture of general economic stability tilted towards gloomy across regions, they also highlight divergent paths across economies and underscore the precarious nature of global growth in the coming years. This calls for us to be vigilant and responsive to these evolving economic conditions. As I delve into the domestic economic landscape, I would like to share that our projections for economic growth from 2024 to 25, 2024-25 to 2027-28 show some signs of resilience. In the fiscal year 2024-25, our economy demonstrated resilience by achieving a growth rate of 2.5%. This growth has primarily been driven by a remarkable performance in the construction sector, which expanded by 22.5%, as we saw significant infrastructure developments and increased construction activity across the country. The service sector also showed robust growth at 3.7%. This indicated strong consumer demand and business activity. Animal farming or livestock farming maintained steady growth at 3.5%, contributing positively to our agricultural sector. However, we faced several challenges during this period. The mining sector contracted by 5%, while the manufacturing sector declined by 2.3%, with the textiles, clothing, and footwear subsector particularly affected and showing a decline of 8.2% collectively. Crop production also experienced difficulties and contracted by 5.1% due to climate-related challenges. And as we look ahead to the budget year 25-26, we project an improved growth rate of 3.4%, up from 2.5% of 2024-25. This optimistic outlook is supported by several positive indicators. First, construction is expected to maintain strong momentum with projected growth of 30.4%. And it is expected that construction will be the major driver of economic expansion. We anticipate a recovery in crop production with a return to positive growth of 0.9%, as well as a stronger growth in livestock farming to 4.2%. The service sector is projected to maintain steady growth of 3.1%. Even as we look at this outlook, Honorable Speaker, we remain mindful of ongoing challenges. The manufacturing sector, though showing some signs of improvement, is still projected to contract by 4.2%. The mining sector will likely continue facing headwinds with a projected decline of 2.9%. And as we look ahead, our medium-term projections show that the economy will grow at 2.2% in 26-27 and 2.1% in 27-28. Nevertheless, these projections reflect a gradual stabilization across sectors, with mining, manufacturing, and others expected to return to positive growth in those years. Construction will also normalize at more sustainable levels of 8.5% and 9% respectively, as the Lesotho Highlands Water Project Phase 2 winds down. On inflation, Honorable Speaker, our economy continues to face persistent inflationary pressures, though we are seeing a gradual easing. Consumer price inflation currently stands at 6.0% in 2024-25, and we project it to moderate to 5.4% in the upcoming budget year. This elevated inflation rate is driven by several factors: the ongoing recovery in domestic market, particularly in the construction sector, which is growing at over 20%, putting upward pressure on building materials prices as well as labor costs. The contraction of crop production by 5.1% has also contributed to an increase in food prices and pressures, as the region also faces similar conditions. We expect this impact to moderate as agricultural output recovers in the coming year. Honorable Speaker, I now turn to the monetary developments. Mr. Speaker, in 2024, we saw a growth in the aggregate money supply metric called M2 of 10.6%, slowing down from 19.8% that was recorded in 2023. This growth was driven by a 26% surge in an aggregate M1. In real terms, total credit extended to the business sector rose by 2.5% compared to a 23% increase in 2023. Meanwhile, household credit continued to grow, expanding by 12.4%, with personal loans increasing by 14.2% and mortgage loans by 6.8%. We saw a response of the Central Bank of Lesotho's Monetary Policy Committee by reducing the policy rate by 25 basis points to 7.5%. This means the average prime lending rate decreased from 11.25% to 11%. During 2024, the local currency loti appreciated slightly against major currencies. The rand strengthened by 0.3% against the US dollar and the pound, and by 0.7% against the euro, as well as 23.3%. I beg your pardon, Mr. Speaker. The rand strengthened by 0.3% against the US dollar, as well as the British pound, and by 0.7% against the euro. This pattern contrasted with significant depreciations in 2023 was attributed to improved domestic economic activity as the energy crisis eased in South Africa. However, the resilient U.S. economic data and monetary policy easing by the Federal Reserve supported the dollar, limiting the extent of the local currency appreciation. Honorable Speaker, as of January 2025, total government debt stands at 23.1 billion maluti, which comprises which comprises 19.3 billion maluti in external debt, that is 83%, and 3.8 billion maluti in domestic debt, which is 17%. Mr. Speaker, our debt to GDP ratio stands at a moderate 57%, which is below our upper limit of 60% of GDP. According to the debt sustainability analysis, Lesotho's debt distress risk remains moderate with limited capacity to absorb shocks. The government is committed to reducing the debt burden in the medium term by introducing, among others, fiscal rules, including a public debt rule that seeks to contain public debt to 60% as a percentage of GDP. This will enhance transparency as much as it will control deficits and provide flexibility to manage shocks that may arise. Mr. Speaker, at this juncture, please allow me to talk to the unemployment status in our economy. Mr. Speaker, I wish to bring to the attention of the House that our economy is facing and confronting a significant challenge when it comes to youth unemployment. The findings from the 2024 Labor Force Survey reveal a troubling situation that calls for our prompt intervention and action. Amongst the 760 between 15 and 35, approximately 145,087 are currently unemployed. This figure is striking as it represents nearly 39% of our youth who are actively looking for work but are unable to secure a job. This situation also represents more than just a number. It reflects postponed aspirations, unfulfilled potential, as well as broken futures that remain uncertain. The situation is particularly concerning for our young women. While the overall youth unemployment rate stands at 38.9%, young women face an even steeper challenge with a 40.8% unemployment rate, compared to 37.1% for our young men. This gender disparity reflects deeper structural issues that we must reflect on and address. What is equally troubling is the low youth labor force participation rate. Only 31.48% of our youth are either employed or actively seeking employment. This means that many of our young people have become discouraged, with over 226,857 having given up looking for work altogether. However, with these challenges lie opportunities as well. Our formal sector currently employs only 87,849 people, while the informal sector accounts for 481,873 jobs. This picture suggests that there is significant room for expanding job creation in formal employment spearheaded by the private sector, particularly in the growing sectors of the economy. We must therefore act decisively to bridge the gap, Mr. Speaker, between education and employment as much as we bridge the gap of unemployment. We are confronted with the reality that our higher education systems produce graduates at a faster rate than the economy can absorb. There is also mismatch of available opportunities as compared to the skills that they have acquired. In this regard, we have to look deeply into opportunities for job creation as well as opportunities for our young people to participate in the... I beg your pardon, Honorable Speaker. I will start. In this regard, we look for opportunities in the private sector for our young people to get engaged in business, while at the same time the formal sector has the potential to provide better jobs for them if we improve our education policy. The future of our nation depends on the productive engagement of our youth, and we cannot afford to let another generation's potential to go to waste. With this, Mr. Speaker, I would like to now turn on to the key policies that underpin this policy statement. Mr. Speaker, this policy statement is underpinned by the following policies and reforms. First, promoting inclusive economic growth. Mr. Speaker, despite the achievements we have made so far, the challenge of igniting inclusive economic growth that creates jobs for our people remain. To further tackle this challenge head-on, the government of Lesotho will introduce a series of further reforms and policies aimed at stimulating economic growth. This includes policies focused on industrial development to foster growth in the manufacturing and agro-processing sectors, helping reduce reliance on imports and promoting self-reliance in a number of productive areas. Further investments shall be made in the agricultural sector as well as in other sectors where we plan to develop value chains that will help in job creation. We further look into extensive investments in the energy sector as well as in technology. The government plans to take a new strategic approach to tourism development by developing tourism special economic zones. A policy for technological innovation will be rolled out to support digital transformation agenda and enhance the country's competitiveness and adaptability in the global economy. We shall continue with investments in public infrastructure to support private sector investments. Global evidence suggests that competitive business environment that promotes and includes conducive legal and regulatory environment is a key driver for private sector investment. Restrictions of both domestic and foreign investment in Lesotho are evidently higher than the average of all the SADC members. Lesotho scored 40% on SADC investment climate scorecard compared to 20% average for SADC as a whole. In this score marks a lower score indicates lower restrictions on investments. This means that the SADC averages at 20% is much lower and much better, is a much better environment than the 40% that we have. Mr. Speaker, past efforts to improve the investment climate were hindered by gaps in implementation with weak coordination across the government and development partners. Legal and regulatory framework for investment is incomplete and requires streamlining to enhance transparency and consistency. Institutional mandates are overlapping and not clearly defined. Furthermore, there are limited positive spillovers from existing foreign investments to local investment. To address these challenges, the government will complete the investment policy and enact an investment law improving business licensing, registration, and improving land markets and land administration. Mr. Speaker, the second pillar is enhancement of resource mobilization. The current development financing landscape that has created uncertainty in development assistance forces us to look to our own domestic resource mobilization initiatives in order to wean ourselves from dependence on uncertain development assistance flows. In this regard, the government has prioritized the following resource mobilization initiatives and reforms. Noting that government made a commitment to implement alcohol and tobacco levies incrementally to allow the administrative changes and business adjustments, government proposes incremental increases of alcohol and tobacco levies by 2.5% and 5% respectively. To support low-income earners during these trying times, the government shall increase minimum threshold for income tax from 5,000 maluti to 6,170 maluti, with an applicable rate of 20%. In other words, income earners that earn below 6,170 maluti will not be subjected to income tax. A rate of 35% shall apply for income brackets above 6,170 maluti. In addition to this, a tax credit for each individual income earner is increased from 920 maluti to 970 maluti per month. Furthermore, in order to support small businesses, the government shall increase the VAT registration threshold from 850,000 maluti turnover to 2 million maluti turnover. This measure is intended to relieve small businesses of the high compliance costs and accordingly facilitate investments and improve economic activity for small businesses, for small and medium businesses. Mr. Speaker, the number of accidents on our roads has increased drastically in recent years. And this has put huge pressure on Motor Vehicle Assurance Fund that compensates victims of motor vehicle accidents. In line with market trends and global developments, the oil levy will be revised upwards by 10%, and the Motor Vehicle Assurance Fund will be increased. A charge of 5% will be increased to the levy that caters for the Motor Vehicle Assurance Fund. Honorable Speaker, the government, through the Revenue Services Lesotho, will continue to reinforce the efficiency in collection of both taxes and non-tax revenue by the application of digital technology and enhancements of ICT systems. The government intends to further enact into law the Income Tax Bill, the Tax Administration Bill, and the VAT Bill to further strengthen revenue administration. The third pillar, Mr. Speaker, is public financial management reforms. In this regard, government will continue public management reforms, which are an important part of the broader public sector reforms in order to ensure responsible public financial management. These reforms will establish clear and consistent rules for budgeting, for spending, as well as reporting across ministries, departments, and agencies of government. The intention is to improve government accountability, efficiency, and transparency in its financial operations. Strategic focus areas of the reforms for this financial year will be to introduce fiscal rules so that we are able to better plan our resources. We will also prepare for establishment of a stabilization fund that will help to smooth our spending in difficult times. We also wish to enhance public investment management, streamlining public procurement, and better managing public assets, as well as accounting and reporting of government operations. Government will take decisive steps to implement these measures by creating a centralized asset registry, leveraging the newly created asset management unit within the Treasury Department in the Ministry of Finance. We shall also establish a prioritized project pipeline that is ready for implementation, as much as we will also improve project management skills to ensure that funds that have been allocated to projects are used efficiently. This is in line with a system that we have just installed of public investment management information system. Furthermore, these initiatives are also planned to ensure that public resources are allocated and spent in a manner that supports national developmental priorities, as well as inhibiting corrupt practices. Mr. Speaker, the government intends to optimize various sources of financing to support its development and growth program and maximize the value of every lootie that it spends. In terms of monetary and financial sector reforms, key pillars include financial inclusion, where we intend to continue to have our population financially included. Today, our country is ranked second to South Africa in SADC on levels of financial inclusion. We stand at 91%. This is a remarkable improvement from 81% that we recorded in 2021. And these developments, Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to report, are mainly driven by both mobile money services as well as fintech companies. Mr. Speaker, in financial inclusion, as we drive financial inclusion, we also will be looking into consumer protection and market conduct regulation. The high levels of calls for tighter consumer protection regime to protect the vulnerable consumers of financial products from unfair market practices by the financial sector providers or financial services providers has been heeded. As such, more regulations are going to be promulgated in the year 2025-26 to achieve this goal. We also need to scale up financial education to equip Lesotho with the knowledge to make informed decisions about finances. The Central Bank of Lesotho has partnered with the National University of Lesotho to offer a certificate in personal financial management in the coming fiscal year. The graduates from this program are expected to be the change agents for prudent financial management amongst our population. In this sphere, again, Mr. Speaker, the implementation of the Pensions Act 2022 is continuing. During the year, the Central Bank of Lesotho has registered more pension funds, including the Public Officers Defined Contribution Pension Fund. Because the sector has for many years been unregulated, compliance is expected to be a challenge at first, but stabilize as we move forward. And therefore, employers are expected to remit employees' pension contributions timely and in line with the law. In the sphere of finance, plans are ahead to continue with modernization of the payment systems, where we are looking at having a payment gateway and upgrading the national switch. This will further help with financial inclusion as much as it also helps to deal with money laundering issues. A critical reform in this regard, Mr. Speaker, is revising the outdated exchange control regime to enable businesses and investments to flow easily into our space. The hindrance for transfer of funds between Lesotho and the rest of the world is one that has noticeably hindered progression of business. So through the Central Bank of Lesotho, the government is planning to develop the Currency and Exchanges Bill in an effort to modernize the exchange controls in Lesotho and support economic growth. To conclude this section of policies, Mr. Speaker, our vision remains anchored in achieving fiscal sustainability while promoting inclusive growth for our nation. And at the heart of our fiscal strategy lies a fundamental commitment to reduce our exposure to the volatile circle revenues and look inward to support ourselves. This transformation, however, requires bold and decisive action and support from all. The domestic revenue mobilization strategy that is in place is aimed to strengthen our tax administration as well as it broadens our tax net or the revenue base. Mr. Speaker, I would like to say that I would like to mention the second pillar now is relates to the government expenditure. In this regard, we're looking at transforming our fiscus to one that spends more on investment as opposed to recurrent spending, limiting wastage, limiting many inefficiencies that come with recurrent spending. Strategic rationalization of recurrent public expenditure is key in everything that we do. We need to moderate as much as we reduce undue inefficiencies in our public service systems and ultimately eliminate inefficiencies overall. In this regard, a very sensitive matter of the public wage bill surfaces. It is therefore befitting for us to continue to make a commitment, Mr. Speaker, to working carefully and with the public service to look into strategic initiatives such as careful public workforce planning, functional reviews, reskilling, redeployments, re-empowerment to be able to manage our public service size and wage bill. And on this very sensitive matter, it is with a great sense of humility and responsibility that I wish to implore all of us to support this transformational journey and remain positive ambassadors on the matter throughout our public sector reforms. Mr. Speaker, our fiscal consolidation efforts are not merely about cutting costs. They are about building resilience for our economy and amplifying our capacity to withstand external shocks. We are creating fiscal space that is necessary to protect provision of essential social spending and maintain a robust social safety net for our most vulnerable citizens. To support our private sector, we are implementing targeted fiscal incentives for small and medium enterprises. Our goal is to nurture domestic entrepreneurship and attract foreign direct investment in key and strategic areas. Mr. Speaker, we recognize the risks that we face, climate risks and changes being one that affects all the sectors. While we are rationalizing spending and increasing our ability to raise revenue, we remain committed to dealing with climate and investing in climate resilient technologies in all our sectors. We remain committed to maintaining debt sustainability and following carefully a borrowing strategy that will prioritize concessional financing and carefully evaluate new debt commitments against our capacity to repay. And I wish to summarize by saying that our approach to fiscal policy remains. We need to develop a more resilient, diversified, and inclusive economy. Achieving this demands of us discipline, innovation, and steadfast dedication to reform. And if we all commit to this, we will achieve it. Mr. Speaker, I now move to budget performance for 2024-25. In terms of revenue, in the fiscal year 2024-25, we witnessed fiscal developments with total revenue reaching 65.7% of GDP. Tax revenue performance has been notable, contributing 24.1% of GDP, driven by income taxes at 11.4% of GDP and taxes on goods and services at 12.7% of GDP. A particularly striking aspect of our revenue structure has been the robust performance of non-tax revenue, especially water royalties from the LHDA, which contributed 2.9 billion maluti to our fiscal resources. The Southern African Customs Union receipts remained a substantial revenue source, accounting for 27.8% of GDP. This performance that I have just outlined has culminated in a positive fiscal balance, producing a surplus of 10.6% of GDP in 2024-25. When it comes to expenditure developments, in the fiscal year 2024-25, a surplus of 4,394 million maluti is projected, accounting for 10.6% of GDP. This notable surplus signifies a robust fiscal performance driven by the robust revenue collection, as I have just indicated, from the water royalties. However, the elevated level of recurrent expenditures, particularly in terms of the wage bill, indicates an urgent need for structural reforms to facilitate greater development spending while preserving fiscal sustainability. Our recurrent expenses, which totaled 18.1 billion maluti, or 43.8% of GDP, have been carefully managed throughout the year to ensure efficient service delivery. This includes social benefits of 2.4 billion maluti and interest payments of 1 billion maluti. Capital expenditure for 2024-25 stands at 4.6 billion maluti to date, representing 11.3% of GDP. This investment demonstrates our commitment to infrastructure development and long-term economic growth and sustainability. The outlook, looking ahead for 25-26, we project total spending to reach 65% of GDP, with recurrent expenses at 43.8% of GDP. A significant development in our expenditure framework is the substantial increase in capital spending, which has risen to 21.2% of GDP, reflecting our commitment to building infrastructure. The public wage bill is projected to be maintained at 17.2%, while preparatory works are being advanced to implement the requisite public service pay structure reforms. For expenditure in 2025-26, we have budgeted total spending of 24.1 billion maluti, or 55.1% of GDP. Recurrent spending is projected at 18.8 billion maluti, roughly 42.9 or 43% of GDP, reflecting our commitment again to efficient public service delivery. Capital spending is set to increase to 5.3 billion maluti, representing 12.1% of GDP as we continue to invest in key infrastructure. I am pleased, Mr. Speaker, to report that our overall fiscal position shows a surplus of 2.3% of GDP in 2025-26. This positive balance will be achieved through four main factors. One is strong circle receipts, robust tax and improved non-tax revenue collection supported by disciplined expenditure management. And looking into the medium term, our fiscal focus for 2026-27 and 27-28 show a continued focus on fiscal sustainability. Mr. Speaker, within this picture, challenges remain and have to be confronted. I have spoken elaborately about one of them, which is the wage bill. The second one is the volatility of our revenue. We face pressures from external economic shocks, including global market uncertainties and regional economic fluctuations that could impact on our revenue streams as well as our trade relations. This has to be managed with care even as we forge our way forward. The national priorities for this year's budget remain largely in the productive sectors and in boosting them to produce the necessary growth and necessary jobs. These include agricultural production, manufacturing in all its forms, creation of value chains, development of tourism sector, generation of renewable energy, infrastructure development, and leveraging on technology, while we take care of social sectors such as healthcare, as well as education and social protection. With this, Mr. Speaker, I would like now to turn to the budget allocations. Mr. Speaker, the projected government revenue for the upcoming fiscal year, as I said, is 25.4 billion, reflecting a 4% increase from the 24.4 billion of last year, or this year. This revenue constitutes SACCU receipts of 9.2 billion maluti, domestic taxes of 9.8 billion maluti, and non-tax revenue of 6.4 billion maluti, inclusive of the royalties from the water exports. The total expenditure estimates are projected to be at 32.7 billion maluti, representing a 6% increase from the previous budget of 30.7 billion in 2024-25. The recurrent expenditure estimates have risen by 8%. Public debt has also increased by 2% from 3.1 billion in 2024-25 to 3.2 billion in 2025-26, representing domestic public debt. Capital expenditure estimates have increased by 6% compared to the 8% rise in the recurrent expenditure estimates. In addition to the revenue that I have just talked about, government has increased government revenue has increased by 4% compared to 2024-25. And in addition to the government revenue, donor grants have decreased by 6%, while donor loans have dropped by 5% compared to the previous period. The financial outlook reflects a resource gap of approximately 967.2 million maluti. Starting with the first pillar of enhancing inclusive and sustainable economic growth and private sector-led job creation, the agricultural sector, with an allocation of 1.3 billion maluti, plays a pivotal role in ensuring food security, fostering rural development, and contributing to economic growth. To enhance effective farmer support, the government recognizes the need for reliable data to inform such decisions in this support. To this end, government intends to establish the Lesotho Integrated Agriculture Information Management System, LIAMIS, through which farmers will be profiled accordingly. This system will serve as a robust and efficient tool for providing smart subsidies on agricultural subsidies vis-a-vis or via e-vouchers and agricultural insurance using a well-informed digital database. In response to escalating climate risks that adversely affect agricultural output, the government intends to commission 2 large irrigation schemes covering 250 hectares in Tsikwane and 200 hectares in Siaga Kuti. Additionally, through the Building Climate Resilience Livelihoods and Food Systems project, the government will implement efficient land and water resource management systems in Sentanteng, Hlotse, Siaga, and Malitsunyane subcatchments. To support the wool and mohair industry with sustainable financing, the government will establish a wool and mohair fund under the Wool and Mohair Competitiveness Project, WAMCOP, and in addition, the government will also establish an artificial insemination center in Mokhotlong and an Angora goat stud in Maseru, Modimontuse, to supply farmers with improved breeds and to improve the quality of the wool and mohair exports. To strengthen animal disease control and management, government will construct a diagnostic laboratory to support farmers. And through the Smallholder Agricultural Development Project Startup 2, government will continue to facilitate access to finance by providing grants totaling 120 million maluti. And lastly, to ensure sustainable poultry production, government will facilitate procurement of parent stock for fertile egg production and support establishment of hatchery facilities through the private sector. Turning now to the tourism sector, receiving an allocated budget of 207.2 million, tourism offers opportunities for cultural exchange, job creation, and sustainable development. The government will develop the tourism sector strategy, which will focus on identifying niche markets, addressing sector challenges. This strategy will also support showcase modalities for onboarding new tourism investments and ensuring an equitable distribution of tourism and hospitality facilities across the country. The government will also introduce grading and accreditation programs in Mokhotlong and Botabote districts to support the growing tourism influx coming through the Sunny Pass border. The government will work towards the nomination of the heritage route from Botabote to Tawabisiu and the development of 2 nomination dossiers, Basotho Hat and Mukhibo, for inclusion in the UNESCO 2003 Convention for the Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage Representative List. Mr. Speaker, in terms of sports, The tourism.
Hanyane fela, Honorable Minister. Hanyane fela. Ditho tse kgabane ke hlokomela hore ho na le ditho tse kgabane tsa ntlo ya senate tse sa fumanang ditulo empa jwale ditulo di ngata ka mona ka hare ka mona mme ke a dumela mabaka ka nna ba teng motho ha o fihla hlomo o fihla ka moraonyana o qamaka jalo o sa bone ka ho na le ditulo o ka nna bo so ipetetsa ka mono ka galaring a nnete ke hore lona le ditho tse kgabane tsa parlamente ena mme e ka ba hantle hore le sisinyehe moo e le hore baeti ba tsebe ho fella e tswe lona jwale le beng ba mosebetsi mme ka nnete bodulo bo hohle ha o fihla o qamaka ho ka dula hohle moo bonang hona le setulo ha hona ditulo tse kgethehileng tseo ka thweng bana ba dula mona nka thabela haholo ka nnete ha ditho tse kgabane tsa parlamente e ka ba ke ka ntlong e ka hodimo ya senate kapa e ka ba ke ka ntlong yona ena di ka tsa kena ka mona ka sedibeng mme ka nnete e le hore baeti ba tsebe ho fumana ditulo taba ena ke hlokometse haholo ha ntse re ya pele hore e hlile ho na le bothata bo jwalo Che ke ntse ke mo shebile mphomphele tona ha ntse a bua mono jale ke bone hore botho ena metsi ha ena o sa etona metsi jale ka bona hore bothata bana bile ka bua ka bona boteng ke a kgola he ka ba go nkwa monyetla o sisinyeuwe tabeng ya hore botlolo e nngwe e tle e be teng he re se re nka monyetla jwale wa ne ke beha taba ya neng ke e beha empa ke batle jwale ho tlo be le kgefu e sa hlokahaleng metsi a be teng a le mangata moo lekala leno le abetse tjhelete e ngata haholo le ke la hlolwa ke metsi ha be teng metsi mono e tlile motho ha bua nako e telele ho fetoha kamele ha be teng metsi moo tle se ke ra ema please proceed, Honorable Minister.
Honorable Speaker. I was about to talk about the sporting industry under the Ministry of Tourism. The Ministry of Tourism remains committed to developing local talent to realize its full potential in this industry. And in pursuit of this goal, the ministry and government will refurbish the Lesotho Stadium and upgrade it to a 22,000-seater stadium, a project that is expected to take 2 years to complete. In addition to this, to support talent development locally, the physical education program curriculum at the National University of Lesotho will commence implementation in the 2025-26 academic year. Honorable Speaker, I move on to trade and industry with a budget of 423.8 million. This is a sector that is crucial for growth and global connectivity. To maximize its potential, the government is developing industrial and investment policies with support from SADC and UNECA. A special economic zones policy is underway to attract investment with stakeholder consultations planned for the next fiscal year. The Habelo Industrial Estate is set to be commissioned in early 2025, creating approximately 6,000 jobs at full capacity. To enhance product development and market access, local MSMEs will receive support to meet quality standards, enabling them to compete locally, regionally, and internationally. Cooperatives continue to play a vital role in local investment, in job creation and food production, as well as in financial inclusion. The government aims to increase cooperative registrations by 10% and launch a contributory cooperative development fund in 2025. This is partly in commemoration of the Year of Cooperatives as declared by the United Nations. This fund is intended to provide liquidity, capacity building, and support for regional and international economic integration. The Lesotho Standards Institute or institution will be operationalized to handle standards development, testing, and certification. And the construction of the Lesotho Standards Institution facilities will begin in this year. With the support of the World Bank, the government is implementing the Integrated Transport, Trade and Logistics project to enhance regional connectivity and reduce trade costs at key border posts. This includes developing smart one-stop border posts at Maseru Bridge and Fixbeck, and upgrading the Kachasnak border post with blueprints and designs set for completion by the end of 25-26. To stimulate private investment, the government is enhancing the business environment through the Investment Climate Action Plan with the support again of the World Bank Group. This includes digitalizing government-to-government business services, streamlining business registration licensing, and strengthening financial infrastructure to improve medium and small businesses' access to capital. The textile and apparel revitalization strategy aims to create 10,000 jobs, while investments in horticulture will establish 9 new orchards, generating 500 jobs through the Entrepreneurship Hub and Seed Financing Facility in 2025-26. Mr. Speaker, lack of access to finance has historically constrained business development and growth and remains an endemic condition for businesses and individuals in our country. Stringent security requirements and risk-averse banking practices have significantly limited credit availability, particularly for women, youth, and small businesses, including startups. In line with the objective of promoting and supporting private sector activity and leading participation in the economy, the government has proposed an allocation of 400 million maluti towards the newly created Inclusive Growth Fund. This is an all-inclusive business financing vehicle of a venture capital fund type designed to enhance access to credit, to promote entrepreneurship and drive growth. A defining feature of the Inclusive Growth Fund, IGF, is its commitment to the previously marginalized groups that would have otherwise participated strongly in the business sector. Part of the total allocation will be dedicated to financing women and youth-led enterprises. The fund will also be available to other eligible businesses and individuals seeking to expand their operations and invest in productive assets and activities. By bridging this financing gap and enhancing liquidity, we reduce the barriers to credit access, and the IGF is expected to stimulate enterprise development, accelerate job creation, and foster a more inclusive financial system. We will leverage commercial bank partnerships under which the fund will be disbursed. This is a self-sustaining financial model that ensures long-term credit expansion without imposing undue fiscal pressure on the government. The IGF will revolutionize the business environment to be a dynamic one and one that is a leader in the economy, and will start operations this year in partnership with commercial banks. And once operational modalities and subsequent agreements have been concluded, this lays a foundation for venture capital financing in our economy and a much-needed development bank with maturity at a later stage. In the mining sector, the mining sector plays and has historically played a significant role in driving economic growth. The government is committed to increasing the participation of Lesotho by launching artisanal and small-scale mining activities in the diamond subsector. The introduction of ASM has already shown remarkable success with over 150 applications for site visits received within just 2 months, and this is 15 times the usual rate. This overwhelming response underscores the sector's potential to create jobs and enhance local economic development. The government has issued 7 prospecting licenses for diamonds and 11 mining licenses, further demonstrating its commitment to fostering a vibrant and inclusive mining sector. In science and technology, we see science and technology as a key enabler of technological advancement, innovation, and solutions to the challenges of modern society. To advance geoscience research and innovation, and to ensure sustainable use of minerals for development, the government is collaborating with the National University of Lesotho and Relationships Inspiring Social Enterprise, RISE International, on research and development initiatives. 2 memoranda of understanding related to mineral information management and certification of diamond origin are currently being negotiated. For the year 2025-26, the Ministry of Science, Communications, Science and Technology will focus on strengthening research and innovation through investments in modernizing laboratories and supporting high-performance computing for advanced research in schools. The GIGA project, a collaboration between the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Science and Technology, will be implemented to improve connectivity in schools and tertiary institutions, ensuring that students and teachers have access to digital tools. Furthermore, the development of a unified government IT framework will improve efficiency, foster collaboration, and support Lesotho's digital transformation. In labor and employment, the government has allocated 81.6 million maluti to strengthen the labor and employment sector. The recently enacted Labor Act of 2024 and the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 2024 reflect the political commitment of the current administration to ensure good governance in the labor market. To effectively implement these laws, 2 new directorates are being established and capacitated within the Ministry of Labor and Employment. These are the Labor Market Information Directorate and the Occupational Safety and Health Directorate. Given the ongoing infrastructure projects in the names of Pudi Hardy and the Millennium Challenge Corporation Compact 2, and under it the market-driven irrigation horticulture, the department is establishing strong and effective labor inspectorate as a priority to ensure compliance and protect the rights of workers. The National Social Security Bill is in its final stages and is expected to be enacted as an Act of Parliament in the financial year 25-26. The law will address challenges of unprotected terminal benefits for vulnerable workers, especially in the clothing and textile sector. In addition, the Act will establish a comprehensive and contributory national social security scheme, ensuring income protection for Lesotho's workforce against economic pressures such as job layoffs, sickness, invalidity, retirement, work injuries, and others. Honorable Speaker, job creation and poverty alleviation remain key, and as part of efforts to create jobs and alleviate poverty, the government will actively pursue labor migration exchanges, which will offer significant benefits in terms of remittances and skills development. Negotiations with several countries, including Canada and Germany, are ongoing and are at an advanced stage. Another critical issue for migrant workers, particularly ex-mine workers from South Africa, is the portability of their outstanding social security benefits. To address this, the government plans to host a joint stakeholder summit to discuss the modalities for facilitating the accessibility of these benefits to their rightful owners. In the second pillar of strengthening human capital, I'll begin with the health services sector. This sector is allocated 3.1 billion maluti. It is a sector that is fundamental in safeguarding public health and well-being and promoting access to quality health care and improving the quality of the lives of our citizens. Mr. Speaker, in their initiatives, the Ministry of Health plans to implement technologically savvy programs that help to provide services even remotely. Social programs and economic policies that help to enhance the well-being of the citizens will continue to exist. In this regard, relevant ministries of government will collaborate to deliver outcomes that support our health sector. In line with the extended National Strategic Development Plan 2, the national priorities focus on reducing morbidity and mortality rates and striving towards achieving universal health coverage. As we continue to grapple with the burden of both communicable and non-communicable diseases, we are committed to taking bold steps to enhance health services and innovation across the country. One key pillar of this policy is the adoption of primary health care as an overarching strategy for health service delivery in Lesotho. This will require a concerted effort to reduce the incidence of diseases such as tuberculosis, HIV and AIDS, and chronic non-communicable diseases like hypertension and diabetes, while ensuring that we also strengthen our healthcare infrastructure. We recognize the critical role that community engagement and empowerment plays in achieving better health outcomes. By integrating health services with local community services and ensuring that health workers are adequately trained and supported, we are working to strengthen health security, biosecurity, and patient safety. Moreover, in our fight against TB, we are employing innovative tools such as digital X-ray technology and artificial intelligence to improve diagnostic accuracy and treatment outcomes, demonstrating the importance of technology advancements in healthcare. As part of this policy, and despite the challenges and headwinds ahead, we will continue to address HIV and AIDS through comprehensive testing, treatment, and prevention strategies, ensuring that no one is left behind. We have made significant progress particularly in reaching key populations such as children, men, and other vulnerable groups, and we will not stop. We will enhance our outreach and education efforts to close the gaps and continue to build on the success of the previous programs. Honorable Speaker, the rise of incidences of non-communicable diseases, including cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. As the incidences of these diseases increase, we will focus on early detection, prevention, and treatment strategies, ensuring that we provide effective care for our patients, regardless of their location or their socio-economic status. In the equally important sector of education, this sector will be allocated 3.3 billion maluti. This is a sector that is the foundation for building human capital, fostering innovation, and ensuring long-term sustainability. To address the challenges of poor access to education, the government will continue to construct inclusive education facilities, including classrooms and age-appropriate ablution facilities across the country. We will also provide classroom furniture to both learners and teachers. The government is committed to accelerating digitalization of preschool, primary, and secondary education. We have already built capacity of 400 teachers to conduct classroom sessions using digital platforms. In addition to this, to improve competencies of learners advancing to post-secondary education, we have introduced and commenced to pilot the Lesotho Advanced Secondary Certificate at the secondary level. To meet the country's skills needs, the government is expanding vocational education and training systems through implementation of an approved three-tier model, which includes academic, technical, and vocational education streams. Groundwork has already started with the support of our development partners to assess the school's status in terms of infrastructure and human resources. And as part of our efforts, we will pilot the academic stream at the secondary level at the beginning of the 2025 basic education school year. Furthermore, we will continue our efforts in developing curriculum materials for the vocational stream in this financial year. Mr. Speaker, the loan bursary fund that is dispersed through the National Manpower Development Development Secretariat, is undergoing reforms aimed at sustaining the Human Capital's Development Investment Program. These reforms involve transforming the financial model of the bursaries for sustainability, improving access and quality through an equity-based means testing award model. This model will prioritize accredited, employable skills development programs and improve governance and management effectiveness by transitioning from a bureaucratic to a corporate institutional framework. To fast-track these reforms, the Loan Bursary Fund reform policy has been developed and approved by Cabinet in 2024-25, and the supporting reform bill and means testing instrument will be finalized and implemented in the coming financial year. When it comes to social protection, the Ministry of Gender, Youth and Social Development will be allocated 1.5 billion maluti.
Minister. Minister. Negisa me mataba ya debate ya landlen. Ya bona go wena le letona le sentse le debate ya gona fika ga ene paitseng. E be ka ba kefe. Na go le tla ba teng. Hona tsena bua tla ba tao fe. O se ke wa tswa motho mang kapa mang. O be ditaba tsa hao ka mo go tlobileng ka teng. Le wena motlhombe le tona tloela o hena tona le kgabane. Motloela ite mosebetsi wa hae. Tsela pele Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. So these resources will go towards advancing gender equity and empowering vulnerable groups through inclusive social protection and economic programs. Honourable Speaker, we have committed through the Sustainable Development Goals to implement gender-sensitive budgeting. Central to this is youth empowerment, driven by the Sibabaso Youth Empowerment Initiative, which provides startup capital and platforms for showcasing talents. In addition, the government of Lesotho's membership in Youth Connect Africa has been very transformative, and it further facilitates exposure and linkages of Basotho youth to regional empowerment opportunities. We, as Basotho, can only complement this program and advance our youth by supporting these initiatives. To bridge the gap between education and employment, the National Volunteer Corps program offers practical work experience set to expand from 10 to 100 graduates next year. The reopening of Mateko Vocational School in Tabatseka equips youth with essential vocational skills, fostering entrepreneurship and job creation. Together, these initiatives promote inclusive growth and sustainable socio-economic development. To enhance efficiency of social assistance delivery, the Ministry of Gender, Youth and Social Development is transitioning from cash payments to digital platforms, increasing digital disbursements from 5% to 18% within a year. To ensure effective implementation, the Ministry is working closely with the mobile network operators to assess network coverage, agent availability, and local cash liquidity. Plans are underway to diversify payment methods, including mobile payments and bank platforms, particularly for old age pensions and other grants. The Ministry will undertake recertification and proof of life tests for beneficiaries on a consistent basis to ensure transparency and to limit leakages from these funds. Mr. Speaker, I wish to transit to the pillar of building enabling infrastructure. And in this regard, I'll start with the Ministry of Public Works and Transport. In building transport and public infrastructure, the Ministry will be allocated a budget of 3.2 billion malut. This budget largely goes to facilitating smooth movement of goods and people this allocation is meant to facilitate the movement of goods and people and drive economic integration and diversification, fostering business growth and promoting the development of both public and private structures. These efforts are key.
Honourable Minister. Order, all members. Toze khabane. Se ga etsang jwalo. Ilaga bolela a ke qala mona hore letsatsi lena ke letsatsi le leholo haholo tshebetsong ya naha ena ya bo jale re ne re tshwanetse hore che ka ha jwale ha ke batle ho bua ka Senyesemane ke tla tlameha hore ke bue Senyesemane ka Sesotho a se hantle wa tseba ke bo batla ho hlatswa diaparo tsa rona tse ditshila hona seterateng moo a re banka mona le ha eba hona le moo re hanyetsanang re le ditho tsa matlo ka mokgwa ka banka teng empa tsatsi la ka jeno ka mokgwa nna ke bonang ka teng hai re na le batho ba bangata ho ke sa bone ka hohle ho lokile hore ka qalella ho sututsana e leng hore a ka nete dintho tse kgabane nna ke bua fela ka taba ya boiphihlelo ba maturity ha re sa ditseng taba tsa rona hantle re itlhahiseng hantle ho matjhaba a re shebile re se ke ra tla itlotlolla mona ra etsa dintho tse mmakatsang tswela pele mohlomphehi letona.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. These efforts to building our infrastructure especially connectivity and road infrastructure, are key to advancing trade as much as they are also providing the necessary jobs to our people. To enhance transportation and stimulate economic activity and provide accessible, reliable, safe, and environmentally friendly facilities for business and commuter use in district and urban centers, the government will continue with the construction of bus terminals in the districts of Leribe, Berea, Mafeteng, Kuting, and in addition, Tabatseka and Mohalishoek districts. Furthermore, the Kanana Community Council office and the Mokhotlong police station will be completed this coming financial year, whilst new construction works for Mohlakeng Community Council office, Tabatseu, and Dikweneng principal chiefs' offices, as well as the Tabana Morena police post, will commence in the upcoming financial year. To ensure convenient connectivity among various districts, the Katse-Tabatseka Road will begin construction in 2025-26. I need to mention, in partnership with the World Bank Group, this project will provide essential connectivity between Leribe and Tabatseka districts, enhancing logistics and trade activities in that part of the country. The Roads Directorate will accelerate the completion of ongoing major projects and finalize feasibility studies and designs for the road linking Mokhotlong, Tabatseka, and Kachasnek. In addition, the Tibelong Bridge over the Sinku River in Kachasnek will be constructed this year. And the rear urban roads, 15.5 kilometers, and Impilo intersections will be upgraded. Mr. Speaker, renovations at Mosheshe-1 International Airport that started in 2024-25 with the first phase of the work are expected to be completed by end of 2025-26. The renewed airport will not only facilitate passenger air travel to and from Lesotho, but will also become a key catalyst for cargo, igniting cross-border trade. With the Cabinet's approval of the Civil Aviation Reform Policy, it is anticipated that Parliament will prioritize and enact legislation for the establishment of both the Civil Aviation Authority and the Lesotho Airports Company. This will better position the aviation industry to meet compliance standards and contribute meaningfully to economic growth, particularly in tourism, agriculture, mining, and trade. The government is committed to signing the Electronic National Traffic Information System Memorandum between Lesotho and South Africa which will facilitate data migration and the activation of additional system modules towards automating traffic and transport services, as well as implementing cashless payments. With the revenue services, Lesotho expected to start collecting non-tax revenue at the Fiscal one-stop shop, and full liberalization of vehicle number plate production and improved service delivery should be anticipated. To address the frequent disputes regarding public transport fare increases, a consultancy to develop a pricing model and system for this subsector has commenced. Further benchmarking studies for vehicle testing stations and driver testing grounds will also be conducted. More importantly, the roads traffic bill is expected to be tabled before Cabinet and Parliament during the first quarter of 2025-26. Having completed this section, I move now to the water resources sector with an allocation of 2.2 billion maluti. This sector plays a pivotal role in ensuring access to clean water, supporting agriculture, public health facilities, as well as individuals. The government, through the Integrated Catchment Management Project, ICM, will continue to rehabilitate selected catchment areas in Sinku, Mahaleng, and Muhokare to enhance groundwater recharge and protect large dams from siltation. This will involve rehabilitating watersheds ranging from 676 to 3,000 hectares, stabilizing 400 dongas over 1,500 hectares, and restoring 1,500 hectares of rangelands. These interventions will particularly and specifically target the following areas: 6 sub-catchments in Khubedu, Fotse, Sinkunyane, Mahaleng, Dikhetla, and Malitsunyane across 12 community councils, benefiting a total of 440 villages with a total population of 47,931 people. The sector will upscale interventions in sub-catchments in Mitulung, Maraka Bay, Ribaneng, Ketane, Pamung, Tsakgolo, Peka, Dikgetlane, Mphosong, and Tabapazo, covering 25 councils and 838 villages, and a population of 54,561. This upscaling is aligned with national priorities, including the Millennium Challenge Compact 2 and the Lesotho-Botswana Water Transfer Project. The government is committed to supplying water, clean water, the government has committed to universal supply of clean water to the citizens. And in this regard, water supply will be improved to villages along the Mitulung conveyance system and those surrounding the reservoir. Some of the water supply systems tapping from the Mitulung Dam have already been completed, while others are still ongoing. The remaining systems in 16 villages benefiting over 69,000 people will be finalized in the upcoming year. In addition, we are exploring sustainable sources for villages not served by the Metulun Reservoir, with interim stopgap measures already in place. We cannot deny the link between good health outcomes and proper sanitation. And in this regard, the government will continue to expand sanitation coverage nationally from 52% to 58%, aiming for a 6% increase in this year. In this regard, 13 villages in Maseru and 2 in Berea will benefit from this initiative. This will include construction of water tanks and water harvesting facilities at schools and public institutions such as clinics and those in districts. In particular, Maseru will benefit from rainwater harvesting tanks at 1 clinic, 1 community council, 1 high school, and 6 primary schools, while Berea will also have a clinic, a school, a high school, and a primary school. The flagship water supply projects in the lowlands are progressing well, and the Lesotho Lowlands Water Development Projects 2 and 3 are focusing on Mohalesupu will follow. Phase 2 will benefit a total population exceeding 100,000 individuals in 30 villages. Mr. Speaker, the review of the Lesotho Highlands Water Treaty will be undertaken with the goal of negotiating a better deal for Lesotho in terms of project sustainability, positive impacts on the livelihoods of Basotho, and other benefits. The proposed review is awaiting a response from the South African authorities, which will inform our budget estimates. And the Lesotho Highlands Water Project will begin implementing water supply projects in the Katsi area, benefiting villages around that area. This project will cover 45 villages with a population exceeding 85,000. The Greater Maseru Water Supply Extension Project will continue to cover peri-urban Maseru, including villages on the Tuate Plateau. The government's continued focus on improving water and sanitation, water supply and sanitation, coupled with the review of key water treaties and the implementation of sustainable infrastructure projects, underpins our commitment to ensuring access to clean water for all, as well as boosting agricultural productivity. In the area of energy, the energy sector will be allocated a budget of 1.5 billion malut. This sector is essential for powering economic activities, improving infrastructure, and achieving sustainable development goals. The government is committed to enhancing energy security and access across the country. Through the Ramarutule 80 megawatts solar generation project and the power storage facility, the construction of phase 1, which was 30 megawatts, has been completed. And between April 2024 and January 2025, 45 megawatts was injected into the national grid. 45 megawatt hours. 45 megawatt hours of power from that facility were injected into the national grid. A feasibility study for power storage identified a need for 171 megawatt hours. So phase 2 of the Ramarutule solar plant is under evaluation by the China International Development Cooperation Agency, with the construction of 2 more power plants of 40 megawatts and 24 megawatts expected in 2025 and 26. Preparations for the rehabilitation and upgrading of the Katse 1.1 megawatt hydropower plant are underway. Furthermore, the government is collaborating with independent power producers for the production of 50 megawatt solar power in Tabatseka and 60 megawatts wind power in Mohalisuk, with negotiations for power purchase agreements progressing well. Mr. Speaker, the government is working towards building the National Strategic Fuel Reserve Facility at Makaka, with an environmental and social impact analysis completed and compensation for affected persons underway. This is a strategic intervention that ensures that we have adequate reserves of fuel to power our economy in times of need. To increase energy access, 583 households have been connected to electricity through off-grid systems in various rural areas, and 3 health centers and 25 schools have been electrified through the Lesotho Renewable Energy and Access Project supported by the World Bank Group, benefiting over 13,000 households. In this year, the government plans to work on the regulatory framework for energy, and in that regard, passage of the energy bill is critical. The rural electrification program will continue to provide electricity to over 18,000 households. And mini grids will bring electricity to over 3,000 households. The Tikwe industrial area will see upgrading of the substation, unlocking the potential for 8,400 jobs in that estate. To stabilize energy supply, a feasibility study to upgrade the Simongo mini grid and the refurbishment of the Mpiti to Hasekake transmission line will be undertaken. This will complement other plans for the future to aid in transiting to clean energy, as the whole world is doing the same, and producing much more energy for ourselves, satisfying the local demand and exporting power as a strategic commodity. In the communications, science and technology, significant progress has been made in advancing Lesotho's digital transformation and infrastructure development. The implementation of e-parliament system marks a key milestone in modernizing legislative process. We are beneficiaries of that system. The approval of the National Digital Policy and the Digital Transformation Strategy demonstrate a strategic commitment to a digitally driven economy. The completion of the Lesotho Metropolitan Fiber Distribution Network feasibility study lays the groundwork for us to continue with this transition. And infrastructure development efforts have also included the construction of 17 base tower stations to enhance mobile internet access. Regulatory advancements such as the amendment of licensing classification and fee schedules by the Lesotho Communications Authority have facilitated the provision of internet services via satellite, improving connectivity in remote areas. These achievements pave way collectively for transition to digital service delivery and reaching all in terms of financial inclusion, fostering innovation and strengthening trade. An allocation of 381 million to the ICT sector will drive innovation, digital inclusion, and economic growth. Key policies will be developed to assist and help in the transition of the policies that anchor this transition. To strengthen our resilience against cyber attacks, a central government security operation center will be established to provide real-time monitoring and threat response. And in addition, the Government of Lesotho Enterprise Architecture and Interoperability Framework is being developed with a view to improve government efficiency and digitization. We are expanding the broadband through mobile towers, and furthermore, optical fiber deployment is being implemented with a 96-kilometer stretch from Roma to Tabatseka underway, and with the support of the African Development Bank. E-service centers are also being renovated to enhance digital access and promote digital financial inclusion and service delivery where the people are. Funding will also be availed to upgrade broadcasting infrastructure for wider radio and TV coverage, emergency communication, and digital migration. Expanded broadcasting coverage is recognized as an important medium-term goal. A new broadcasting complex is also planned for the 2025-26 fiscal year to modernize media services, to create jobs, promote local content creation, and support a digital empowered nation. Mr. Speaker, I move to the last pillar, I hope, which is governance. And strengthening national governance and accountability systems. In this regard, Mr. Speaker, to support these initiatives, we need strengthened governance we need strengthened planning and development systems, financial systems, and accountability systems. We require reliable data for analysis of development options and make accurate policies or policy interventions. In our quest to achieve the desired state, we are rebasing our national accounts to better reflect Lesotho's economic structure and plan for the launch of to launch phase 2 of the economic activity census for accurate data collection on economic activities. Preparations for population and housing census are planned to start in 2026. They are planned to start in April 2026. The process of economic development requires, among others, deep engagement and strong partnerships that are anchored on unwavering cooperation. To enhance cooperation and collaboration with our development partners, government is maturing its development processes by aligning development partner support with NSDP objectives explicitly. The Kingdom of Lesotho development cooperation frameworks, amongst others, include the China-Africa Cooperation and the Millennium Challenge Health and Horticulture Compact. The African Development Bank's new country strategy plan also presents opportunities for impactful projects, as much as the strategy of the between the government of Lesotho and the UN family. The government will be preparing in the fourth global. Government will be participating in the fourth global partnership monitoring round to showcase its commitment towards the causes. As we leverage these partnerships to bring development financing, to bridge the development financing gap, we will focus on concessionary financing opportunities as the first option. Loan arrangements will be considered to the extent that the overall debt portfolio remains sustainable. We are exploring other means and financing agreements and financing arrangements between the private sector and the public sector, cognizant and being careful to avoid risks. In foreign service, Lesotho continues to foster strong diplomatic relations worldwide, recently establishing ties with the Kingdom of Bhutan, Grenada and Vanuatu. In celebrating the 200th anniversary of the Basotho Nation, we welcomed high-level visits, including the President of the Federal Republic of Germany and the UN Secretary General. Leaders from UN Rome-based agencies also joined the bicentennial celebrations, demonstrating their unwavering support to the Kingdom of Lesotho. His Majesty's role as the champion of nutrition and the FAO Ambassador for Nutrition continues to receive promising and significant international support. We have also secured new partnerships with Nordic countries for the Just Energy Transition Program under the leadership of His Majesty. Our strategic partnerships have helped to build and deliver roads, solar and other power generation facilities, schools, assistance in healthcare facilities and equipment, and other benefits. In security services, the Lesotho Defence Force has been actively deployed across various regions of the country with a particular focus on high crime areas to support policing efforts. Notable locations that have seen increased military presence include Fubani, Hubedu, Dipakweng, Ribaneng, Matedile, Matsieng, and Rot. These deployments have significantly enhanced public safety and reassured local communities while contributing to a reduction in crime incidences. Mr. Speaker, Cabinet has approved the enterprise risk management policy, marking a pivotal step towards establishing a resilient and accountable governance framework for public sector. The policy is designed to enable proactive identification and management of risks that could impede the achievement of our national priorities. By embedding enterprise risk management within public financial management practices, we are not only safeguarding public funds and resources, but also improving service delivery and promoting sustainable development. In addition,
Honourable Minister, ke shebile batho ba o mametseng ke a bona ba ntse ba eketsa ho thamola melala o le ka ho thusa ditsebe tsa bona ho utlwa e leng ga o ntse o ya le ntse le thewa hanyane empa ka ha che musidi khala e sentse le nngwe nkare give it your best o ba o sontso le qetellong e le hore ba utlwe kaofela ditho tse kgabane tswela pele Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the proactive oversight framework embedded in the enterprise risk management framework will highlight distinct challenges associated with our state-owned enterprises. The state-owned enterprises have been plagued with operational inefficiencies, financial mismanagement, and in some cases, signals of blatant corruption over the years. And this require urgent government intervention. Addressing these challenges will minimize the risk of government bailouts, expensive bailouts, and protect public finances, supporting long-term economic sustainability. In this regard, I wish to refer to the fact that during 2024-25, government had to ensure security of electricity supply by supporting the Lesotho Electricity Company with 328 million maluti to purchase bulk electricity, as the Muela hydropower plant had to shut down due to scheduled maintenance. Mr. Speaker, this therefore points to the magnitude, or indicates the magnitude of the problem and the risks that we are facing with the governance of state-owned enterprises. A holistic review and reform of state-owned enterprises is required, as much as we also need a policy framework that regulates their operations, because they are state enterprises and will have to be governed in a manner that limits the risks to spillover of risks to the fiscus. Furthermore, Honorable Speaker, I wish to end with cross-cutting issues, starting with the environment. The government recognizes the urgent need for attention and to address the degradation of national forests, which have traditionally been used as a source of fuel and are increasingly being exploited by some local enterprises, restaurants, or so-called barbecue restaurants. To reverse this trend and promote sustainable use of forest resources, the government will expand the land area the area of land under indigenous forest cover, promote tree planting activities to support soil conservation, and enhance water catchment areas. To ensure that local communities benefit economically, the government will support the establishment of orchards and forest-related cottage industries, thereby enhancing rural livelihoods. These initiatives build on proven successes in using forestry to improve livelihoods. In the 24-25 fiscal year, the government invested 1.5 million maluti in purchasing fruit trees from local farmers, boosting local agriculture and forestry. Despite continued efforts to address pollution and maintain cleanliness in our towns and villages, pollution remains a significant health risk and problem to our communities. And to combat this challenge, government has implemented a plastic levy. This levy is designed to discourage the use of plastic bags with a measure, which are a major source of pollution, and to promote the production of eco-friendly alternatives by Basotho entrepreneurs. This initiative does not only address environmental concerns, but also creates new economic opportunities. Revenue from this levy will be collected by the Lesotho Revenue Services, Lesotho, I beg your pardon, and be allocated to an environmental fund dedicated to combat pollution and environmental degradation. To further address waste management challenges, the government is conducting various studies regarding Tshwenying landfill as an alternative for Susani landfill. The intention is to explore all options that are available for sustainable waste management, which can be implemented not only for Tshwenying versus Susani, but across the country. Preparatory works to close Susani landfill and operationalize Tshwenying are planned and budgeted for 2025-26 financial year.
Please proceed, Honorable Minister.
Another issue, Honorable Speaker, is enhancing our risk management abilities, and in this regard, readying disaster management authority to handle disasters as they come. It appears to us that natural disasters and pandemics have become an everyday reality. These disasters threaten social and economic gains that our societies may have gained, leaving families to grapple with loss and uncertainty. To further strengthen our response to the pressing challenges posed by climate change, the government, in collaboration with the United Nations Capital Development Fund, UNCDF, will continue to implement the local climate adaptive living facilities initiatives. These initiatives are designed to enable councils to effectively adapt to the impacts and challenges of climate change. The focus will be on earmarked councils in Mohalisuk, in Maseru, in Mafeteng, Tabatseka, Leribe, and Mokhotlong. Coming to governance and accountability, the government of Lesotho is committed to strengthening anti-corruption efforts and limit losses that occur as a result of corruption by ensuring the independence and operational capability of the Directorate for Corruption and Economic Offences. The government will implement the e-procurement system for transparent public contracts and empower the office of the audit office to conduct surprise audits. Public officials will receive regular training on ethical standards, and the Directorate of Corruption and Economic Offences is allocated a budget of 69.2 million in this regard. Mr. Speaker, I wish to reiterate our resolve to traverse into a transformed Lesotho that holds the fundamental principles of democracy, peace, and prosperity. We remain resolute in jealously guarding the rule of law. We strive to build strong pillars for lasting peace. And as we forge through the turbulent times, we do so with deliberate efforts to build a unified Basotho nation. In our efforts to enhance delivery of justice, a high court facility will be opened in Mohalisuk in this coming year. There will also be construction of local courts in various areas in the quest to distribute and decentralize justice facilities in the country. This is a journey of courage and patience that requires selfless commitment but for which we are totally committed to traverse. Significant strides have been made to build a resilient economy, to lay the foundations amidst raging geopolitical tensions of today. This August House has passed legislation that cements efforts to safeguard the economic gains resulting from regional and international cooperation. Joint efforts have been made between the legislature and the executive to facilitate conditions, precedent, and requirements for harmony. Lesotho, as a member of the global village, must align with protocols and conditions set by different international standard setting bodies. And in this connection, we need to redouble our efforts in addressing the recommendations made by these standard setting bodies. In this regard, I wish to again recommit our efforts to fight against money laundering and terrorism financing activities in our economy. Mr. Speaker, at this juncture, let me indicate that the central motive of this policy statement is that we wish to continue to rebuild a firm foundation for economic growth. We wish to build stronger, more and much more resilient institutions, as we also build the private sector. We build resilience for our private sector and maintaining order in our economy. We wish to build enabling infrastructure to enhance investment competitiveness while boosting growth and empowerment. And we are committed to expand human capital base by increasing access and quality in health and education, working as a nation and with our development partners. We wish and hope and will transform the skills base to realign with the needs of the industries that will propel growth, so that all our arms are on the deck to play their critical role in strengthening institutional capabilities and strengthening our economy. We will continue to improve efficiency and the impact of social protection systems as well as other systems. We will strive to enhance economic participation of youth, women, and other marginalized groups. And lastly, in line with the SDG agenda to protect the planet and the people, the government, in partnerships with communities, will implement integrated approaches, strategies, and programs to enhance environmental management. Having said this, Honorable Speaker, I wish to now propose to this Honorable House.
Hanyane fela, Honorable Minister. Hanyane fela. Ditho tse kgabane ke hlokomela hore lekala le ntse le sebetsana le dipalo tsena hantle tseo mohlomphehi letona a tla di bolela e leng hore e hle di ntse di lokiswa ho ntlafatswa hantle hore di ngolehe ka mokgwa o nepahetseng, empa he ka bomadimabe tse ding di se di tswile, dipalo tse ding di se di tswile, se ntse di tsamaya ka hara ntlo ka moo. Jwale kotsi ya ntho eno ke hore e tla nako eo letona a buang tse nepahetseng ebe ha di tshwane le tsa ntse tseo re ilang ga di fuwa. Jwale ntho eno e be re bakela ntho e kang morearea. Jwale ke ne ke re ka nnete ke bona bohlaswa bo tshabehang mme letona haeba wele e ka re dintho le nna ke sena tsona. Jwale ya ba batho ba ba masentse ba na le tsona mona, jwale di tla re bakela bothata. Empa he molemong wa ditho tse kgabane teng, molemong wa ditho tse kgabane. Order, all members. All members. Order. Order. All members. Ruri amaruri ke ne ke mpa ke re ho qoba pherekano. Re hlokomele boemo boo. Re qobe pherekano. E se re jwale ha ho bua figure e itseng jwale o tla morearea. Empa hele ha o le jwalo. Honourable Minister, please proceed.
Honourable Speaker, I was at a stage where I was going to propose to this House that given the conditions that I have just read in the last 2 hours, I propose to this House that the salaries and wages of the public service be adjusted by 2% across the board to preserve the take-home. This is in addition to the notch increase that is prescribed by the law. Mr. Speaker, while we face huge uncertainties in the global landscape, our budget proposals have been channeled towards promotion of inclusive growth. We, however, cannot afford to leave the vulnerable groups behind. In this context, the government will increase the disability grants and the child grants by 50 maluti each per month. As I conclude, Mr. Speaker, allow me to express my heartfelt gratitude to all who have contributed to the formulation of this budget estimates for the fiscal year 25 and 26. And allow me to extend my deepest gratitude to this august House for its continued support and commitment to advancing our nation's development agenda. Mr. Speaker, I wish to express my profound gratitude to the Right Honourable the Prime Minister for his unwavering support throughout the budget preparation process. And I am indebted to my colleagues in Cabinet for their constructive contributions and inputs as they endeavor to chart this difficult terrain within their areas of responsibilities. It will be remiss of me, Honourable Speaker, to conclude without acknowledging the selfless efforts demonstrated by the ministerial staff in working on this budget, as well as other agencies that we work close with for their commitment in working with us. Finally, I wish to say to our development partners, your continued support and financial cooperation remain crucial to our development journey. And for that, we continue to be truly grateful for your partnership, and we hope we will continue with the programs that we have in our hands, in as much as we have other plans to continue with you in this journey. Mr. Speaker, allow me at this point to extend again my gratitude to every individual and stakeholder who in one way or another contributed to the development of this financial policy, for their insights, for their collaboration, for enriching this budget with inputs and contributions, reflections, and sometimes advice. Mr. Speaker, I wish to say, re a leboha ge le lekala la ditšhelete, re boetse ge lebohe le your leadership, Honorable Speaker, gore be ka jeno re tsebile gore re gapaletse morero ona. Kgotso pula nala.
Honorable Minister. (2025, 2026), and this estimate shall stand referred to the relevant portfolio committee. Ditho tse kgabane ke lokela ho thethaka ka ho le leboha haholo. Puo ena e nkile dihora tse pedi o tse tharo, e nkile dihora tse tharo, mme ka nnete ha ke a bona ho hlokoleha ho bontshang ho kgathala matla kapa ho teneha. Ke bone batho ba baholo ba tsitsitseng ba bontshang hore ho etsahalang mona ke ntho ya bohlokwa haholo. Ka nnete ke tlameha ho le leboha haholo ka taba eo, ditho tse kgabane. Ke lokela hape ke kgutlele ka ho wena mohlomphehi, mookamedi wa ntlo ya senate, wena ha mmoho le ditho tse kgabane tsa ntlo ya senate. Re a be re thabile haholo ha re dutse mmoho ka tsela ena eo re dutseng mmoho ka yona, mme re le bona le le teng le dutse with all the requisite patience. Ke ntho e monate haholo. Ditho tse kgabane le ntumelle ke lebohe baeti ba rona, all our important distinguished guests. Our hearty gratitude to you for coming here to be with us to witness this great day in the financial calendar of our country. We thank you heartily. I know that much of the time I was speaking in Lesotho, but that was only housekeeping matters. There was nothing of substance that I did not speak in English. Ka lebaka lena, ditho tse kgabane, we have come to the end of our business for today. The House is adjourned